I want to take the time to thank everybody that helped out with this build. Now that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the video. So the stock plastic is ugly and it always pops off when you pick it up or ride it, so we're going to go ahead and do away with this. I'm not a big fan of how it looks and how it fits. The bolt's out and we're going to go ahead and throw it away and test fit the new piece. As you can see, I just overlapped the plastic. On the non-exhaust side, I actually cut a groove in the plastic to meet the front piece. It actually looks pretty good. So I'm going to scoot it forward a little bit. I got to shave this thing down some more. There was like a high bridge right here. I had to take a razor knife and shave it down so it cleared the exhaust. But here is the mount that I made. It bolts into the old plastic mount, and I used a piece from the seat mount down and it lines right up. As you can see, I did have to trim a little bit there, but that's all you got to do. This is before and this is after, and it makes it look way better. This has a duckbill style fender. I really don't like it. Kind of throws the bike off. We're going to replace it with a KX140 fender. There's some bolts right up in here you got to take off. Pretty self-explanatory. The bushings out of the stock fender are kind of loose in the KX140 fender. You just snug it down, straighten it up, and tighten it down. I did have to use 2 washers in the back to keep it from rubbing the frame. As you can see right here, 2 fender washers, and you're good to go. As you can see, it's the first mod everybody does when they get a KLX140, and with the side plastics, I think it looks really good. So what we're going to go ahead and do is take the throttle slide out and let it hang, because we are going to be replacing the throttle cable. Going away with it altogether. So just going to leave it hang. I'm going to go ahead and loosen up the choke so we can pop it off when we get the carburetor loose. And then we're going to go ahead and take the bolts out of the head for the intake boot. These threads feel like they are super long. I don't know why they're that long, but I feel like it takes forever. Then we can go ahead and pop the carburetor out of here. I hate this carburetor. It has gave me nothing but problems since I've bought it. So that's why we're just going ahead and thrashing it. You can't adjust it. You can't do nothing with it. So here's the new one. I'll leave all the information in the description below what it is. I got it from T-Bolt as a kit, but all the specs will be in the description below on the carburetor that I have, or the carburetors you can source out to make this work, and the parts. There's 2 different ways to do it: buy a kit or make it work. This kit comes with a new intake, and it bolts right on, and it comes with the bolts and all the hardware, which is super nice. So we're just going to go ahead and tighten this thing up. From the factory they have red Loctite on it, so I went ahead and put a little bit of red Loctite on them. Keep it from jiggling loose. There's a lot of heat in this area, especially with this new intake. It's not rubber, it's aluminum. Like I said, these threads on these bolts feel like they go in forever and ever. But so far this kit is fitting actually really well. Really impressed with it for the price you get. You get everything to get this thing running and out on the trail. The stock carburetor on this thing is okay. It just ain't that good. So we went ahead and popped the boot on the carburetor that comes with the kit. Go ahead and squeeze it down in there. This uses the factory air box also. Now this part is a little bit of a pain. It's kind of tight, but once you pop it in the air box, it should slide right down in there. And then it comes with the bolts to tighten it up. These are a little long also, but you just tighten up the boot and tighten up your clamps, and your carburetor is installed. Then I'm going to show you guys how to put the throttle slide in the easy way. So we're going to go ahead and take it out. Here is the new throttle cable. So you want to go ahead and run it down through there. and it goes in this little slot right here on top of it, and then you put this little metal keeper in there that holds it in, and the spring pushes down on that so the throttle cable don't come out. I'm going to show you guys how to put a throttle spring on the easy way instead of trying to scrunch it all up and parts flying everywhere. We're just going to thread the spring on just like this. So we're going to take the spring and thread it on the throttle cable. Self-explanatory, it's nothing hard. So we're going to pull it out, take the throttle cable, start the spring on the throttle cable, and just twist it on. And after a while, you'll have it threaded on almost like a bolt, but it'll be where it needs to be. So just keep spinning it and spinning it. As you can see, it spins right on. At the end, it gets kind of hard because it has like that double spring at the end. Once you clip it through, it's right on. You don't have to fool around pushing on it. And you just stick it back down in there and tighten it up. Got it hooked up. Now we just got to go and hook it up on the throttle. And we got it in, put it back together. As you can see, everything fits nice. The throttle works. You can do away with the choke. And as you can see, this fits nicely up around in there. Nice and cool. Let's see if it will fire it up. Let me turn the gas on. Now we're going to go ahead and put this sprocket on. I loosened it up. Got to take the keeper off. We got the new sprocket on. This will make this bike a totally different bike. I'm going to go ahead and put the graphics on this bike. As you see, I use the water method. Self-explanatory. This is how I do the whole bike. Spray the graphics, and this helps it not stick, and you can move it around where you want it. And then I work from the middle and start pushing the water out. And then after I do that, I use a hair dryer and I keep working the vinyl around until it sticks really good. This is how I've always done it, and this is how I do the whole bike. As you can see, it starts to work everything out and it starts to lay flat. Then I'm going to go ahead and take a heat or hair dryer and go ahead and blow it and then work everything out. And as you can see, it is nice and snug. It's not coming off. I test fit the tank shrouds, see where it's going to end up, because sometimes they're cut a little funny or the plastics cut a little funny. So I go ahead and wipe it down with alcohol, clean it up real good, make sure there's no dirt or anything, and make sure there's no oils from my hand on there. So I just wipe it up real good, make sure the graphic is going to stick. Take your time here. Like I said, I use the water method. A lot of people are against it, but I've always used the water method, and this helps you move the graphics around when you put it on the tank. So what I do is peel an edge off, and then I hold it up, spray water on the backside, just kind of wet it down. You don't need to soak it, just wet it. And then this allows you to move the graphic around to where you need it so it don't like permanently stick until you squeegee it out. So as you can see here, I'm just going to go ahead and line it up. You can see how it comes right off. No problem. It still has a little bit of stickiness to it, but it allows you to pull it off. So I'm just lining everything up, making sure it looks good before I do a final press down. And I always work from the middle out. That's just how I've always been taught. As you can see, the water is squeezing out. I'll do it with my hand first, and about 90% of the air bubbles come out. You might have a few here and there, but as you can see, I take a card and I go ahead and I work the little air bubbles that are left, and they come right out, no problem. I do recommend a squeegee because it has a rubber piece that keeps from scratching it. I lost mine at the time of recording this video, but as you can see, I can work it out with my hand too, and then I take a card over it, and it smears the water right out from behind the graphic. And I go ahead and wipe it down, get all the water off of it, and do another press down to make sure I have all the air bubbles out, and just to look at it and make sure everything is smooth. And I take the heat or a hair dryer and I hair dry it, and I push it down again, This just helps it expand and stretch a little bit and adheres better to the plastic. And as you can see, it come up just a little bit. I stretch it out a little bit more, and now I have a graphic that is pretty flat. I like to rub it a good bit around the edges just to make sure everything has seated. Like I said, take your time here. We're not in a hurry. And as you can see, that graphic laid down super nice. There's 1,000 ways you can do this. There's tons of videos on YouTube, but this is how I do it, and this is how I always continue to do it. And sometimes dirt bike graphics are a little big or they're cut a little funny. Don't be afraid to take some scissors and trim it up a little bit. As you can see, these fit pretty good. The company that sent these out, these are amazing. They're very thick and they're very durable. So I'm really happy with that. And I'm just repeating the same process that I did on the top. The same way I did the number plate, I'm just doing the same thing on the sides. You can take the plastics off and do it that way, but I don't like doing that because the plastic, moves around, and when you go to press on it, it bends. I like doing it on the bike, and as you can see, it goes on nice and easy. This overall took me about 2.5 hours. That's taking my time, making sure the graphics lay down nice and neat. If there is a little bit of imperfections in it, don't be upset about it because, if it's your first time or your second time, it's okay. It is a dirt bike. It is going to get scratched up. I'm not really building a show bike, and I'm not building a motocross bike, but I am building a trail ride bike. So I'm going to be hitting trees. It's going to be laid down. I'm not trying to make this bike something that it's not. So I'm not going to put a bunch of numbers all over it like it's a race bike. I just wanted to do a throwback to make it look like the classic 90s bike the Kawasaki's had. I always like the looks of those, and this graphic really brings it out. And that's why I left the number plates green, because the dirt bike that I do like, this back in the 90s, had just green number plates on the side. And I didn't want to do anything with that because, like I said, I don't want big numbers on there. I'm not racing this bike. This bike is a weekend warrior bike. You take it out in the woods and you putt around on it and you have fun. I'm not trying to make this bike into something that it's not, but I do want it to look kind of cool. So as you can see there, I just did the same thing that I did with the top graphic. I'm just repeating the process on all this. And remember, when you go to do the rear fender, heat is your friend, but I also use water. As you can see, I'm using a hairdryer again, getting those edges down because there is a little lip on the bottom plastic. You just go ahead and go around with a hairdryer, make sure it bonds real good. And once you put that heat on there and start pressing it down, these graphics stick really well. Now I'm wiping it up. It looks good. Same way with the graphics for the fender. They fit really, really good. Like I said, this bike has different plastics on it. So the kit that I bought, I did have to make some of this stuff work. But if your KLX140 is stock plastic, this kit is really great for that, and it fits no problem. But I really like how this bike turned out with the graphics. You can see I'm using heat here to get those pieces. It goes right around to it. No problem. Now we're going to go ahead and do away with these seal covers. I really don't like them because mine are holding water and mud. I noticed when I washed it the other day that mud was coming out of the bottom of these because there really isn't any clamp or anything. You could put a clamp on there, but I think they look cheesy, so I'm cutting these off and going with shock socks. They will work on this bike because this bike is a little different in the front, but I did get them to work. And it really makes the bike look different. It doesn't look so cheesy. I understand this is going to be rode in the woods, and people are like, oh, don't take those off. You can nick it or whatever. These will be fine because it was getting dirt and stuff in the seals, and it was really corroding or something. I don't know what it is, but it was doing something to the shaft of this thing. It was turning a different color. So I went ahead and took those off, and I'm putting these on. I really like the way they work because you can wash these, and they do actually work. A lot of people use them, and I think it just gives it a overall different look, and it doesn't look so cheesy. So we went ahead and threw those on, and this bike build is about done. Now a lot of people throw a bunch of power at these, but I didn't. I just wanted to go for looks right now because this bike is pretty fun the way it is. Do a little bit different gearing and a different carburetor, and it really opens this bike up. As you can see, I'm testing it, make sure it ain't going to grab.